Welcome to Her Remarkable History. Remember to support our channel, please subscribe. The brutal accident that almost killed Henry VIII. Henry VIII is known today for being a brutal and violent Tudor king who even ordered the executions of 2 of his own wives. He's most famous for his 6 wives, but initially when Henry was married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, he seemed genuinely happy. He was driven to divorce or annul Catherine by his desire to have a male heir and a son, but there was one incident in his life that it's believed turned him into a tyrant. There is no disputing that when Henry VIII died, he was loved by his country who mourned him greatly. But there was a point in his life where he almost was killed, and after this he became the violent ruler he is remembered for. But what is the story behind the accident that almost killed him? Henry VIII became a tyrannical beast of a monarch, it's believed, because he had a drastic personality change because of an infamous jousting accident that almost killed him. Henry was known for being a sporty and generous ruler who, when he first came onto the throne, and was practically noted for being a keen tennis player and an athletic monarch. He was known for also being handsome and tall, but after his accident things changed drastically, and he became vicious, paranoid, and his relationships changed greatly, including with his closest friends. On the 24th of January 1536 at Greenwich Palace, a tournament was being held, and Henry VIII was the star attraction, having a joust. Whilst he was on the tilt yard, he was thrown from his horse against his opponent, and the horse, which was heavily armoured, then fell on top of the Tudor king. The effects of this were that Henry was knocked out cold and left unconscious for 2 hours, and many thought he had been killed. But he did manage to come around, and it's believed that this accident may have caused Anne Boleyn to miscarry a child that was a boy, due to the stress caused by her husband's health. He did manage to recover from this, but it aggravated a serious leg issue, which he had for the rest of his life, and some historians believe that the accident caused a brain injury which would never have been detected during the Tudor times. Still today, we are learning about the effects of concussions and accidents resulting in someone hitting their head, and how dangerous they can be without the proper treatment. Before the accident, whilst the king was in his 20s, he was 6 foot 1 inches tall, and his waist was around 32 inches. As he struggled with his mobility and his legs caused by the accident, his waist measurement grew to around 52 inches, and his chest measurement went from 39 to 53 inches, and it's believed that in his final moments he weighed around 28 stone. Henry's former excellent health had abandoned him, and it was remarked by an ambassador at court what he used to be like. It was said, "His Majesty is the most handsomest I have ever set eyes on, above the usual height, with extremely fine calf to his leg, and a round face so very beautiful it would become a pretty woman." The king had suffered with ill health in his life, but he seemingly overcame everything in his path, including smallpox and even malaria. He also had previous jousting injuries, but the sores on his leg, which began at the age of 36, caused by varicose ulcers, and left him to be less mobile, and this never healed. His first accident on the tilt yard occurred in 1524, and he failed to lower the visor of his helmet as his opponent in the joust, and as his opponent hit him with his lance, he smashed into Henry VIII's right eye, and he suffered with migraines afterwards because of this. But his fall at Greenwich Palace in 1536 left him unable to speak, and as mentioned, Anne Boleyn was told that the king would possibly die, and this caused great stress on her. It was believed that the miscarried baby was a male, and just to say this child would have been born, then it's very possible that Anne Boleyn would never have been executed. The reason she was executed and framed for adultery, incest and treason ultimately was the king's frustration with her miscarrying children. If this son had been born, Henry would never have looked towards Jane Seymour, and Anne's life may have been saved. It was Henry's personality shift also that condemned Anne Boleyn. Following his jousting accident, many ambassadors became fearful of Henry, and a number began to speak negatively about him, and some began to tread carefully around the king. Today it's considered that Henry VIII may have sustained damage to the frontal lobe of the brain in his accident, and even 5 minutes of unconsciousness today is considered a major trauma. But the Tudor monarch lost consciousness for around 2 hours, which was incredibly shocking. It's likely that the combination of the effects of his accident and also the problems with his legs led to his health deteriorating greatly and his weight gain to be rapid and quick. Also, in the following years, he ordered large amounts of executions and seemed to lurch from one disaster to disaster in his love life, with his marriages to his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves, being a farce that cost him millions, and also his fifth marriage to Catherine Howard, ending in accusations of adultery and a beheading at the Tower of London. The jousting accident, it's believed, also caused Henry VIII's moods to swing, and his personality shifted greatly. It was his obesity also that quickened his death at the age of 55, with the king passing away on the 28th of January 1547 at the Palace of Whitehall. His tomb was planned to have been large and have been used for Cardinal Wolsey, but instead he was interred inside St George's Chapel in Windsor Castle, next to Jane Seymour. One quote which sums up the king's tumultuous attitude towards his wives in much of his life, it says, "What is extraordinary is that Henry was usually a very good husband, and he liked women. That's why he married so many of them. He was very tender to them. We know that he addressed them as sweetheart. He was a good lover. He was very generous. The wives were given huge settlements of land and jewels, and they were loaded with jewels. He was immensely considerate when they were pregnant, but once he had fallen out of love, he just cut them off. He just withdrew. He abandoned them. He didn't even know he'd left them." But Henry VIII is known today for being the reckless and brutal ruler who oversaw a period of time in which 70,000 people were executed inside of his kingdom. Some of his closest friends, including Thomas Cromwell and Thomas More, incurred the wrath of the king eventually, and he would turn on many of his closest friends and advisors eventually as well. The king had a very vicious side, and many of those who encountered this would never live to tell their side of the story, with acts of attainder sentencing people to death without any trial at all. But it's the jousting accident that is attributed to his great shift in personality and outlook on life, and it's believed this was the main factor behind his dark side, especially in the final years of his reign. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.